If you looked at the LEGO aisle of stores or LEGO shop at home like I do, you may have noticed a gradual decline in space themes in recent years. If you're lucky, maybe you'll find a spacey creator or idea set, or some licensed sets such as a Milano or an X-Wing, but no original LEGO space themes. In fact, the last full LEGO space line was released in the summer of 2013. That's over 7 years ago now. By all appearances, LEGO space is dying. Okay, perhaps that's a slight exaggeration. Maybe LEGO space is just sort of comatose. Space themes have actually been on the decline since the 2000s. The 90s saw 11 new LEGO space factions, and that's not even counting Futuron or Blacktron 1 from the late 80s, or the LEGO Town sub-themes. What was once the crown jewel of the LEGOland series has become something we're lucky to see every few years. By now, those of us who consider ourselves LEGO space fans are used to being left the breadcrumbs. As someone who grew up with 80s and 90s LEGO space themes, the LEGO space playsets are very dear to me. So today we'll be taking a look at the rise and fall of LEGO space, and why I believe it must eventually return in the future. I am Professor Godt. As you can see, Kjeld Labs has gone into orbit. From up here, we should have a good view of LEGO space over the years. I could spend hours talking about the intricacies of each line, but we'll stick to an overview of each theme and highlight some of their most notable features. Let's start off at the beginning. LEGOland Space, known today as Classic Space, contains some of the most iconic sets not just of the LEGOland line, but of all time. The 1979 Galaxy Explorer is the embodiment of classic space, with its striking trans-yellow windows and blue color scheme. It's also one of the first sets to incorporate Old Light Gray in its color scheme. Old Light Gray, or as it was better known at the time, Gray. Back then, Gray was virtually non-existent, appearing only in a handful of parts, while LEGOland Space was the first to truly embrace it. These designs, while seemingly crude by modern standards, are incredibly angular, with thin, spearhead-shaped spaceships, giant radar dishes, and bulky engines. Of course, I have to talk about the minifigure characters. These colorful astronauts are the most iconic LEGO characters of the decade, with their simple chin-strapped helmet, air tanks, and the classic space emblem. Each of these colors correspond to a specialization. White are explorers, red are pilots, yellow are scientists, blue are security, and black are spies. The robotic companions of these astronauts are remarkable as well, showcasing complexity, posability, and expressiveness with some very simple part designs. This era also saw the proliferation of the first knot parts to form shapes that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. The style of classic space was not set in stone, with a bunch of sets having entirely different color schemes. However, the LL series are far more consistent with the Galaxy Explorer. The simple spacemen, the boxy but creative robots, the rovers, the tools, even the printed CRT TV slopes. There is just so many details to this theme, laying the groundwork to Blacktron and Futuron in the coming years. 1987's Blacktron introduced the first pseudo-antagonistic faction in LEGO space. Their moral alignment isn't so much stated as implied at this time. Judging by their stealthy vehicles and spying technology, they appear to be some sort of pirate or mercenary faction. Like the black astronauts of classic space, their solid black jumpsuits and brand new visors are perfect for stealth missions. This is just the right amount of sinister for the era, with the same adorable smile of the classic space minifigures hidden under the helmet. All of their ships had menacing names like the Invader, the Renegade, and the Batrax. The ships are less bulky compared to classic space, with sharp edges and uneven designs, making them far narrower and dart-like compared to the classic space series. They also had greater playability with moving parts and modular designs than other ships from the 80s, including detachable mini-vehicles and rovers. 1987's Futuron is the direct successor to the exploration-oriented classic space, with a more traditional sci-fi color scheme of white on trans blue. The uniforms are more detailed this time around, with torsos and visors to match the color scheme, while keeping their specialization colors and iconic space emblem. The color palette is more consistent, but the designs are as creative as ever. My only disappointment with the Futuron is they never got a true flagship like the Galaxy Explorer or the Renegade. But what they lack in a mothership they make for with this impressive monorail system and bases. 1989 Space Police is a defensive faction aligned with the Futuron, sharing the uniform of black astronauts but with white boots on a trans-red visor. In order to stand apart from the Futuron, they had a black, blue, and trans-red color scheme. The larger ships are equipped with little prison pods for criminals, and the space lock-up isolation base to keep them out of trouble. Most of the sets also include a Blacktron minifigure for the Space Police to apprehend, setting the two factions apart as overt rivals, and a prototypical example of LEGO's conflict-in-a-box philosophy. Space Police 1 also introduced us to the larger and more detailed canopy piece, which would be used throughout the rest of the 90s. The Mission Commander is the imposing flagship of the Space Police, with a gear-operated cockpit, adjustable wing flaps, and a detachable base of operation with built-in prison pods, raising the bar for play features in LEGO Space with the most complex designs to date. Around the start of the 90s, we saw the faction model evolve with the introduction of the Imtron to replace the exploratory Futuron, and redesigns of the villainous Blacktron and heroic Space Police. The soft civilian, protagonist-antagonist model recurs throughout most of this era of LEGO Space, entering a cycle of introducing either an exploration, hero, or villain faction each year until about 1997. While these roles were present in the design process and expanded upon in some of the promotional material, there is always some level of moral ambiguity, leaving room for interpretation to decide who the good guys were and who the bad guys were in any set of factions. 1990's Imtron is a civilian faction with a red-on-black color scheme, and introducing us to trans-neon green. Imtron is all about one thing: magnets. Nearly every set includes a pair of magnets, used to transport items across the galaxy. Imtron astronauts have an enormous Imtron emblem emblazoned on their spacesuits, and a trans-neon green visor to match their color scheme. Their vehicles have a very rugged, industrial quality to them, with lots of grills and support structures useful for hauling around heavy cargo. While sporting a wide variety of spacecraft, the highlight of the Imtron line is the Megacore Magnetizer, an enormous mobile base for transporting the heaviest cargo. The giant wheels and cargo platform are really neat, but the exclusive neon green window take the cake. These sets are pure industrial joy which no other LEGO space theme could rival, and a welcome departure from the previous waves. 1991's Blacktron Future Generation, better known as Blacktron 2, contains some of the best LEGO space sets and worst Blacktron sets. These vehicles and bases are loaded with antennae, dishes, and gadgetry to a ludicrous degree, and some of the vehicles look truly intimidating. The designs on these things were cutting edge, with huge bubble cockpits and a more polished design from the original line. And that's my problem. As much as I love the polished and futuristic style of Blacktron 2, this barely seems to be connected to the mysterious nature of its predecessor, drawing too much on Imtron's design philosophy. This organization doesn't have a shred of mystery to its vibrant neon green, white secondary color, and enormous cockpits. These elements just don't suit a more militant faction. They were clearly trying to set up a pattern with these giant letter-dominated logos on minifigures, but it just didn't stick. As much as I love the updated Blacktron logo, the giant B feels incredibly out of place for this secretive organization. This character isn't nearly as mysterious as his dark-visored predecessor. Don't get me wrong, Blacktron 2 is an outstanding theme, just not an outstanding Blacktron theme. 1992's Space Police 2 is exactly that, an updated Space Police for the second generation of factions. Space Police 2 sports the color scheme of gray, red, black, and trans green, which looks good. It's definitely distinct compared to its predecessor, while retaining the impressive spaceships and a new prison cell design. But nothing else about this theme really sticks out other than the minifigures, which, incidentally, are the first LEGO space characters with non-standard face prints, including a headset, hair, and even eyebrows. Seeing green appear as a dominant color in a minifigure is refreshing, and I love the new shoulder pads and a jacket print for the Chief. 1994's Ice Planet 2002 gives us a white-on-blue color scheme and introduces a new color, Trans Neon Orange, representing warmth in the frozen climate. We don't just have trans neon orange windows. We have trans orange visors, skis, dishes, and of course, the legendary orange transparent chainsaw. The uniforms are becoming more detailed as well. The metallic printing, fur trim, and Ice Planet logo really add to the flavor of this world. Commander's Cold has a spiffy naval uniform with gold accents. Ice Planet 2002 also gave us the first visibly female LEGO astronaut with Dr. Kelvin. Ice Planet 2002 stands out from the other 90s space themes with its premise and technology, making it one of the most unique and iconic themes of the era. Spyrius took over as the enemy faction after Blacktron 2 that same year, spying and stealing the technology of other factions to enhance themselves. Their bases, vehicles, and robots are made from pieces of other factions. The Magnus from Imtron, the droids from Explorians, and the secretive Blacktron-esque base help sell this faction as a force to be reckoned with. The rougher black on red with trans-blue windows give a sense of danger about them, and these armored uniforms look like they can take a punch. While not as memorable as the Blacktron, these guys are properly menacing. The last new theme for 1994, Unitron, is a bit of a mess stylistically. Light gray, blue, black, and trans blue make a rather distracting color scheme. This theme is meant to fill the void left by the Space Police, with heavier armor and weapons or tools. The uniforms aren't bad, but they are certainly confusing. We get dark gray for the first time in a torso, but there's also black, blue, yellow, and light gray. None of these elements are bad, but together they seem a little bit off, and there's nothing to unify this theme stylistically, other than a vaguely militant aesthetic. Ironically, Unitron is one of the least coherent and polished of the 90s LEGO space themes. 1996's Explorian faction is regarded by many to be the last true 90s space theme, returning to the Futuron white-on-blue color scheme with newer parts. Explorians began using much larger, more specialized pieces, which are somewhat divisive. These were nice exploration sets with huge radar dishes, androids, fossils, and reflective stickers. While not groundbreaking, it was a strong theme nonetheless. At this point, things seem to be stagnating for LEGO Space. Factions seemed to be running together. Color combinations were either becoming repetitive or ridiculous, and they didn't stick out the way earlier factions did. That would be fine, but if you remove the color schemes, it's difficult to tell some of these newer factions apart. Things just started to go off the rails after that. The stuff just wasn't gripping consumers the way LEGO wanted. After more than 10 years of LEGO Space, we finally saw the first LEGO aliens with the UFO line in 1996. These minifigures really bring out that alien look. The shoulder pads and helmet with brainy printing stick out from other LEGO space themes, with circuitry and cybernetics printed outside their bodies. The heads of these aliens are trans-neon to give their eyes a glow under the mask. They're not overtly evil, there's something very sinister about these guys. This was a significant stylistic departure from the earlier human factions, introducing much larger molds to create cylindrical dish shape to simulate flying saucers, and the printed elements to reinforce the alien aesthetic. The color scheme of gray, black, red, and neon green is nothing to write home about, although it does seem very appropriate here. Some of the smaller vehicles are a little bit bland, but the main attraction to the UFO theme are the giant flying saucers. These things are truly massive, the Interstellar Starfighter being one of the largest spaceships ever for the time. Some of these vehicles also included uncommon lighting elements, which continued into subsequent themes. The downside to this unique design philosophy in larger, hyper-specific molds is a low parts count. This $80 set has only 289 parts. After the modest success of the UFO line, LEGO continued in the alien direction with the Insectoids in 1998. The Insectoids brought us more bug-like vehicular designs, continuing the late 90s trend of introducing large, specific elements. Prominently featured robotic limbs, wings, and an all-new light-up feature, allowing vehicles to power up the laser, stinger, whatever. These trans-blue hinged wing elements are very unique. The trapezoidal panels with circuitry printing really stick out. These Insectoid characters are a member of the Zootaxian race, recycling the armor from the UFO and introducing new dome helmets and friendlier face printing. These hexagonal volt stones seem to power their technology and are prominently featured in each set. The price to part ratio is better here than UFO, with 483 parts in the $80 Arachno Starbase. Because of the large, specific molds and divergent design philosophy, UFO and Insectoids don't feel they inhabit the same universe as prior factions like Imtron or Spyrus, but hey, they sure are unique! 1997's RoboForce is a theme that exists. Why is RoboForce considered a space theme, despite it only having mechs and not a ship in sight? Who knows? LEGO Space was kind of an umbrella term for any sort of sci-fi LEGO at the time, and this theme feels half-baked even compared to its contemporaries. We'll talk about mechs properly in another video. 1999's Rock Raiders is technically a space theme as well, despite not including any, well, spaceships. It includes the first alien molds with this giant rock monster and has some fantastic sets, including an impressive, almost steampunk vibe with its designs. The concept of space miners is really unique for LEGO. The rough and tumble roll cage, faded construction stripes, and heavy-duty drills work together to create a fleshed-out, lived-in world. The dark gray, brown, and turquoise can't be found in any other LEGO space theme, and the characters look absolutely phenomenal. Each character has a unique style, suited for an underground environment prone to landslides and equipment malfunctions, with rugged vests and smaller details like goggles, striped pouches, tools, and cybernetics. There's really no other theme like it, and these are some of my favorite character designs in the entire LEGO catalog. Sandwiched between the chaos of the 90s LEGO Space factions were the 1996 Launch Command and 1999 Spaceport. These were actually sub-themes of LEGO Town, which presented a more real-world approach to space exploration with space shuttles, satellites, and EVA suits. Just look at these dome-shaped visors, they look fantastic. While not traditional LEGO space sets, These are a welcome addition to both themes. By now it is apparent that too much of a good thing can be a problem. 90s LEGO space completely oversaturated in the market. With the sheer volume of sets and factions, they started to blend together in the mind of consumers. You could tell by the late 90s they were just throwing stuff at the wall hoping something would stick. Clearly, LEGO Space needed a rebrand for the 21st century. 2001's Life on Mars was the first LEGO space theme of the new millennium, with a near-future setting where human explorers begin settling Mars and making friends with their Martian neighbors. The aliens used the battle droid arms and torso with a brand new head and leg mold. The giant dome-shaped visors from tail make a return in both chrome gold and blue with spiffy near-future uniforms. Despite some interesting designs and a novel pneumatic gimmick, it was totally eclipsed by the growing Star Wars licensed sets and never truly found their legs. Some of these vehicles are extremely unique, especially the mech and shuttlecraft, but they lack the distinctiveness of other LEGO lines to really take off. This theme appears to have been a disaster, another failed attempt to reinvent the LEGO Space brand. We wouldn't see another LEGO Space theme for almost 6 years. Mars Mission is Life on Mars on steroids, with a pinch of Rock Raiders and UFO for good measure. They bring back the pneumatic system, which works as good as ever. Gone are the days of morally ambiguous factions. This is the first LEGO space theme to have clear conflict, pitting spacemen versus aliens. The orange and white color scheme for the spacemen is perfect, with a brand new, less vibrant trans orange that feels worn by the Martian surface. Their uniforms and vehicles are emblazoned with a variant of the classic space logo over the red planet, suggesting we are viewing an early incarnation of the classic space faction. Remember those cute little Life on Mars aliens? This is them now. According to some of the story material, these aliens aren't actually native to Mars, but a race from far beyond our solar system searching for Mars's crystals. The alien spacecraft are unique as well, with a new 10x10 quarter round piece, giving these ships an otherworldly aesthetic. These parts fit the modern LEGO style much better than the UFO dishes. They are far more compact to allow flexibility of design, and their consistent slope makes it easier to fit it into the rest of the LEGO system. Mars Mission was the facelift LEGO space needed for the new century, paving the way for more themes in the coming years. This theme brought us streamlined sets and a more conflict-driven LEGO space, with clear good guys and bad guys which would define the next 3 LEGO space themes. 2009's Space Police 3 is one of my favorite LEGO space themes of all time. This felt like a modern take of the 90s faction. With a perfect blend of old and new, it takes full advantage of the new parts and building techniques developed over the last decade. The days of rougher, blocky designs are a thing of the past, for better or worse. Their heroic Space Police patrol ships are the smoothest and sleekest yet, with a brighter color scheme than previous iterations, and introducing an updated version of the detachable prison pods. The criminals are equipped with dark, rugged, souped-up and graffitied vehicles. These vehicle designs feel like they ripped off the wheels of a car, slapped on some engines, and called it a day. The unconventional parts usage of Technic and City elements, on top of the traditional LEGO space formula, is nothing short of genius. The alien gang, with their unique prints and colorful molds, are oozing with personality and absolutely steal the show. The Black Hole Gang's villains are so memorable. Squidman, Frenzy, Snake, the Skull Twins, so many new races and molds all in one theme. The belt of the gang outfits turns out to be the face of the gang leader, a space limo cruising mob boss named Brick Daddy. Brick Daddy. I love this theme so much. The Space Police may have the cool factor, but these villains just scream fun. It's like LEGO wants us to root for the bad guys. Space Police 3 also includes some fun nods to previous LEGO space themes, including a tribute to classic space with a statue. One of the second year's villains, Wrench, has a jumpsuit from Blacktron 1 with a Blacktron 2 crest. I wish we had a few civilians packed in here for the Space Police to protect and flesh out this world, and maybe some aliens on the good guy side, and some humans on the bad guys. But I guess that didn't market as well in the focus groups. 2011's Alien Conquest isn't really a space theme in the traditional sense, taking place entirely on Earth. In many ways, this line is the spiritual successor to the 90s UFO theme, crossed with War of the Worlds. The human faction has limited military technology to repel the alien invaders, with a mobile base and a cool helicopter, but not a spaceship in sight. The alien invaders make great use of the Mars mission curves, introducing a new 6x6 quarter saucer section to complement it. The spaceship, stalker, and mothership have really fun rounded shapes. The minifigures are decent enough, with an even more cartoonish, goofy style for the lime green aliens with large eyes and exposed brains. Even the parasites are kind of cute. The alien leader looks like an outlandish Navy general, which fits the campy tone perfectly. I think there was only one wave of these guys, which isn't really a surprise. It was a novel idea, but there was only so much they could do with the concept. 2014's Galaxy Squad truly was a departure from previous space themes, taking a Starship Troopers flair, as minifigures do their part to take on the bug menace. There were 4 divisions within the Galaxy Squad, represented by red, dark azure, orange, and bright green. These are such cool colors, especially seeing them in Space Police 3 helmets. Personally, as much as I love the consistency of this theme, it lacks the personality and atmosphere of its predecessors. I never really cared for the trans-clear windscreens either. They just don't stand out compared to previous themes to create clear and distinct profiles. Blue and yellow, white and blue, red and neon green, white and white. It just doesn't pop. I think part of the reason they made this choice was with the 4 different secondary colors, they had to pick a color that didn't clash with any of the divisions. This just feels generic and flat by comparison. What was I talking about? As far as I can tell, Galaxy Squad didn't fare much better than Alien Conquest. These sets, especially the bugs, had such crazy designs. There's a few comparisons that can be made here to the Insectoids, both involving a bug-like race using vehicles inspired by nature. The Insectoids' vehicles had a rugged, mechanical look to them compared to how disgusting and organic some of the Galaxy Squad bugs look. Despite the novel premise, this theme's only lasted for 2 waves in 1 year, meaning we haven't seen a full LEGO Space theme since the summer of 2013. That's a full 7-year drought of LEGO Space. 7 years! Though even in a drought, there are a few oases. Apparently, there's a connection between Galaxy Squad and 2014's Ultra Agents, though Ultra Agents has nothing to do with space. Despite this, there are a lot of comparisons here to Space Police 3, both in style and tone. These sets also have a sleek, futuristic flair. They even bring back the Robo Doll from Space Police 3. Still, Ultra Agents has much more in common with Alpha Team and Agents than other LEGO space themes. 2016's Nexo Knights fills both the sci-fi and fantasy setting, exciting both space and castle fans and pleasing none of them. Okay, maybe that's a little mean. A world of futuristic knights is a strong concept that fits LEGO really well, and the first wave of sets were top-notch, at least for the good guys. The imposing dark blue with neon orange looks stunning together, but it left people looking for a more traditional fantasy or space adventure feeling abandoned. The more recent LEGO space sets we've seen are just sub-themes of city. I love how these sets pay homage to real-world space exploration, like an updated version of Town's Launch Commander Spaceport from the 90s. It's no Apollo 11, but these playsets really do capture the spirit of exploration at affordable price points. It's not a full space theme, but this is the next best thing. Other than that, we've only gotten some one-off space sets and figures thanks to the LEGO Movie, ideas, and creator. There simply isn't enough demand among the general consumer base for another large LEGO Space line. However, there's still a lot of love for LEGO Space from designers, sneaking in reference to older properties in collectible minifigures, city apparel, and sets. The Classic Space logo, Blacktron, Imtron, the Explorians, it's clear these themes haven't been forgotten. We've also seen Classic Spacemen return in old and new colors, including green in 2014, pink in 2019, and orange in 2020. 2014's LEGO Movie also gave us this enormous $100 package of pure neo-classic space joy. The Classic Space Galaxy Explorer was the LL928, making this its direct successor. The iconic blue and gray is finally back. And just look at that giant trans-yellow windscreen. The printed Classic Space logos, the giant radar dish, detachable flyers, detailed interior. This set has everything, to say nothing of Benny himself. The 1980-something spaceman, a relic of a bygone era. Despite his contributions, is pushed aside in favor of other, more relevant creations. His classic space crest may be faded, and his helmet may be chipped, but he clings to the memories of a brighter future, a theme where imagination is the limit. He is desperate to create amazing spaceships, only to be denied by his so-called friend and forced to go against his nature in order to participate, until finally, after a perilous journey, he finally gets to build the spaceship of his dreams, the way he wants. Wait, am I Benny? Are we Benny? Is Benny a metaphor for LEGO Space itself? If this is true, does that mean that possibly LEGO Space isn't dead? That someday we will all build our spaceships. Sorry, I got a little carried away there. Looking back, it's clear that LEGO doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of the 90s by oversaturating the market with LEGO Space. The overwhelming popularity of LEGO Star Wars, with the marketing and name recognition already done for them, means that any LEGO Space theme will just be competing with that license. Literally the most influential movie of the 20th century and the most iconic sci-fi ships ever made. Marketing a new product is expensive and risky. Why take a chance on an experimental new LEGO space theme when you can just pump out another TIE Fighter or Millennium Falcon? Why go against what works? In the same way that Legends of Chima was blamed for the cancellation of the Thundercats reboot, I think there's an argument that LEGO Star Wars is responsible for the slow death of LEGO Space. Now, I love collecting the biannual ATSTs as much as the next guy, but I'd appreciate a little bit more variety from time to time. LEGO Star Wars is over 20 years old now. That's an entire generation of kids that have grown up with it. Parents who have grown up with fond memories of LEGO Star Wars will probably end up getting that for their kids. Licenses are far too lucrative for LEGO and Disney for either of them to abandon it. On the plus side, the premise of LEGO space themes have arguably gotten more unique since the LEGO Star Wars license. Star Wars has forced the space designers to think more outside the box so that their sets stand out, but ultimately they're still just competing with themselves. I grew up with both classic space and Star Wars, and I love Star Wars in its LEGO incarnation. But I also love the creative experimentation of the original LEGO themes. The design of a licensed themed set isn't about whether a set is unique or not, but how well it conforms to the source material. This is all well and good. Nonetheless, original themes are what LEGO was built on. This isn't the first time LEGO Space has been on hiatus, and the passion behind the scenes is still there. For now, we'll just have to settle for the good odd spacey set or Easter egg. But someday, like Benny, we'll be able to build our spaceships once more. Thank you for watching. Speaking of hiatuses, some of you may have been wondering where I've been the last few months. Things have been extremely busy here at the lab lately, and unfortunately that has prevented me from joining streams and uploading videos here as often as I would like. Not to worry though, I've been working on a secret project here in the background. Literally. This new scenery and the music you're hearing are all part of this endeavor, and I look forward to sharing more details with you over the year. Those of you who have been helping me translate the Deep Space Monitor transmission have been an enormous help, but we'll talk more about that in another video. As someone who has collected LEGO space sets and minifigures for many years, I'm curious which LEGO space themes you grew up with, and whether you think LEGO Space will return in the comments below. If you'd like to support me in my research here at Kjeld Labs, consider checking out my Brickling store, the Professor's Stash in the description. We have a wide variety of rare parts and overpriced minifigures for sale, including yours truly. Use code CLUBBRICK at the note box at the checkout for 10% off your order. The Professor's Stash. Great parts, outrageous prices. Once again, thank you for watching. I am Professor Goat, and until next time, play well.